Hello people, and welcome to BTG. This is your host, Mr. Shaker. You may know me from such songs as After Call and You Shoulda Took the... And as it turns out, from last episode I did have quite a spill, and I lost all of my items or loot, like the one guy in Ready Player One. So now, since I've lost a lot of materials, I'm just going to try to hold out here as long as possible. And I mean, they won't be able to, at least I don't think they will be able to break through the structure. However, I'm just going to hold out here until, until the time subsides, and then when they should be gone. So I'm just going to wait until they're gone. But I mean, now since I can't get out, I have to try to tunnel my way through. Alright. I think the coast is clear. Alright, I'm out. Alright, so I gotta regather all of my other supplies, and well, we'll see what goes from there. I think I came out too early, because if you noticed in the last video, I was being careful. I was careful in the cave, avoiding the skeletons and trying to harness as much supplies as possible. However, I didn't translate my mining techniques over to creating this outpost. So you gotta try to create an outpost that is not only just sturdy or effective, but also do want to be able to create a killing floor, which is something where the zombies can fall in, or the skeletons can also fall in, because sometimes they'll drop supplies. So I have to create one of those as well, just so it's easier to pass the time. But I ran out of all my... I don't have any pickaxes, so yeah, this is gonna hurt. Alright, so now that I have a wood block, that's a good start. Now I got a pickaxe, so now I get to start from the beginning, similar to a prisoner just having a shank. Even though I did hear that certain prisoners were able to create other weapons, such as a spear, and another prisoner nunchucks. And someone even, I believe they created a projectile weapon as well. I think it was like one of those zip guns. It was funny the things that you can do in Prisoner, the type of structures or tools that people can actually create just by putting their minds to things, just given enough time and thought and creativity as well. It's amazing what you can accomplish. Which does lead into my topic today, which I want to discuss, was IQ tests and some of the problems with them. And me myself, I've taken quite a few. Actually, when I first heard about IQ tests, and I heard about the importance and the scale in which you rank, sort of the superiority class, whether you're dull, stupid, or... No, actually, I don't think they call them stupid. They call them dull, normal intelligence, superior or bright. Then you have very superior intelligence. And then there's the near genius or genius. And the one thing I want to talk about was just that in regards to the IQ test, I've read a bunch of posts and forums online where they were stating that IQ tests aren't that important, and other individuals state that yes, they are extremely important. But the issue is with the IQ test is also that people also want to state the validity of the IQ test or its accuracy. Because if you were to take a test online, even though that is acceptable, as Jordan Peterson was stating, that you just have to put in a few questions in regards to which test that you want to or not which test you want to take, but if you want to create an IQ test yourself, just have a few common questions, some pattern recognitions. Even though I do admire the pattern recognition, believes that's a bit more accurate, because some general knowledge tests might not work out depending on which culture you're in. Like I remember taking one test where it stated that a bird in a hand is worth, and I think I chose a bird in hand is worth more than two in the bush. I chose two in the bush, but then the answer to the question apparently was an apple. And I'm not sure who created that test, if it was a troll that created the test. However, it was just funny that you would think, given that idiom or that one aphorism where they say a bird in hand is worth two in the bush, or a bird in a hand is worth more than two in the bush, that wasn't the answer to this IQ test. Which I'm thinking, why did they ask that question if they were going to give the wrong answer? I didn't understand that. The issue is, a lot of the tests that are free, there are some pretty accurate free tests that you can take, and they are quite fun to take as well. The thing is about these tests is that I heard that from some people that they say you should take the ones that's administered by psychologists, and it's stated that these tests are quite extreme and intensive as well. And I was reading something online that they were stating that since some tests that I did take were timed, they were actually stating that the tests that are timed are actually less accurate, only because even if you want to determine whether or not an individual is a genius or how smart they are on IQ or what level they are on IQ scale, sometimes it takes time. Because I know me personally, when I need to know an answer to a question, I don't know the answer and it's unfamiliar, it's going to take some time for me to understand it. If I have all the information there, then it's easier for me to get an answer. Then I can deduce, if all the information is gathered, I can then come to a logical conclusion or a rational conclusion based on that data. However, if I don't have data, if I lack data, then it's nothing more than an assumption or a presumption based on what I already know. But after studying something for quite some time and having some intuition, then you can come up with the answer. However, even if you do come up with an answer and it's timed, it might not be all that accurate. And the funny thing about it is that a lot of people, there's a great deal of people that state that it's not all that accurate, even if it is administered quote unquote properly, you still can't actually dictate someone's IQ because there's a range and you don't know if they had enough sleep that day or maybe they were hungry. You're not sure just all the factors that can come in from this question. Like I know someone that is quite wise actually, and they know quite a bit, and they had an extremely low IQ score, and it was only because they were tired and they weren't used to those questions, and they're bad at tests apparently. I mean, they have quite a few dozen, or actually I think there's quite a dozen certifications, and completely wise, and is revered as a go-to individual at their company. However, just on that one test that they were given, like some of the questions were about I think one of the common questions was okay, I'll give you an example. If Susan is 12 years old, or is twice their brother's age, the question would be, if they are 12 years old and their brother is a quarter of their age, how old will Susan be when their brother is half their age? And if someone is 12 and they say they're a quarter of their age, that means they're 3. And if they're going to be half of their age, then actually I'm trying to think of the answer too, because I know that's like 9 years apart. So yeah, pretty much they would be 18, so they'd be half their age within 6 years. And that is the That'd be the answer. However, they themselves weren't used to those questions and were like, they just guessed an answer because they weren't focused on it. And I think the one issue is if somebody doesn't take the test seriously, how accurate can it be? And it reminds me of that one controversy when someone was talking about race and IQ. I'm uncertain how old those tests were, and when those tests were administered. Because if it was during Jim Crow era, then you can't actually trust those tests. If they were conducted more recently and officially, I guess you can take the free test. And I do believe the free tests do work. It's just that I'm not sure where these statistics are coming from, or where it says this individuals have low IQs or high IQs. And the thing is, these are based on averages. I'm thinking even if you want to base it on averages, if one group was, let's say for example, one group has an IQ of 104, the other group has an IQ of 84. Now, given the notion that the individuals with the 104 are smarter than the other individuals, if those, let's say across the board that those individuals were only 104 and that was it, and the other individuals were, most of them were 84, what then happens if, like, rather than, because who knows how that average was obtained as well, because if someone had an IQ of 150 and the other person had an IQ of 100, then, or the lowest score was 100, then the average, if you want to take the median, is going to be 125. If you want to take the mode, let's say you had more 150s, and like, let's say you had 10 150s and 5 100s. The median at that point would be 50 or slightly under 50 if you take into account the 100 IQ scores. So if you were to look at and the issue is, I think on it, is that no one can actually brag based on that average, really, because when you think about it, if the average was just it, what happens when there's imagine if there's another individual who has an IQ of 145 or so, and they say the average IQ for one group is 104, the other group is 84. The people that have the 104 can't really brag too much to that person that has an IQ of 145, because at that point they would view all of those people as equally as stupid in some case, in that case. So my thing is that I don't think IQ really gives you much of a bragging rights, because at the end of the day, jobs do not judge you by your IQ. I've never seen any job that says, hey, an IQ test. I never could go up to a job and say, hey, I had this score in my IQ. And they say, great, well, you're hired. No, they want to know, well, great, nice IQ. Wow, that's amazing. That's great. But do you know Office 365? Do you know Excel? How advanced are you in Excel? Do you know what happens if someone's formulas don't display? How should they resolve that problem? That's what they care about. They don't really care that much about your IQ. So what's only relevant is the knowledge that you have on hand. And that's what you should do, is gather knowledge. Because at the end of the day, even if you have a lower IQ score, even if you had an average IQ score, which IQs really, depending on the test itself. Like, I know my scores tended to be higher in tests that dealt with math, not really the vocabulary words, but they say which word is like the other. I was able to get some of them. However, if I was unfamiliar with the word, then and the thing is, you can't really look this up on the dictionary while you're taking an IQ test, just because that's a form of cheating. And I'm not sure if you could really write down, like, use a piece of paper. Like, I never really used pen and paper when I need to work out math problems on IQ test. I mean, maybe sometimes, depending on how intense the question was or how much I believe that a pen and paper would help. But the thing is, I just believe that you should work the stuff out in your head. Like the one guy in the Cube, who was, you had to watch Cube Zero for this one. In Cube Zero, this guy was able to picture in his head, was actually able to map out the chess moves. He was able to look at a board setup and then from there moved the pieces within his head, and then was able to then act it out. And by move the pieces, I mean this was maybe several dozen moves, or not several dozen moves, but just a dozen moves that they were able to conduct or enact just from looking at that one board. And they were also a talented artist. And also, if you've ever seen the Cube movie, how the cubes are able to move back and forth, this individual was able to map out how the cubes were moving throughout the whole complex and where they were located and at which time they would move. And this was all in their head. That they were able to even just memorize this or even visualize this. And I believe that's like to almost have a mini hologram in your mind. That is quite impressive when you think about it. Because if somebody's able to have that type of insight or that visualization to the point where you could actually wind up imagining a video game character in real life, or even just to be able to recreate something like that. To almost imagine if you were able to picture all the cars on the road and where this one car is going, where the other car is moving, and where this car is moving along with, your own position on the road. If you're able to imagine all that information in grave detail while you're driving and thinking about something else, that's an amazing talent. And I'm not sure what IQ score someone like that would have. Because it's funny if you don't announce your IQ score. It's funny how high someone will give you the score. Like, for example, Einstein. Einstein never took the IQ test. However, people keep saying, oh, he had a score of 160. We don't know that. For all we know, he had an IQ score of 100. But at the end of the day, the thing is, Einstein never took the IQ test, or never took our test, or the test that I've taken. So I don't know. And also, thinking about the accuracy of the test, the issue is, when someone was speaking about the accuracy of the IQ test, the issue is, how do you, the question is, how smart are you really if you have to pay someone? Like I remember someone stated on some YouTube comment or Reddit, I believe they stated that the only accurate tests are ones that you pay for. And I'm thinking, how how smart are you really if you have to pay for someone to tell you how smart you are? If anything, that doesn't sound like an actual smart person, or actually maybe that's wise. Maybe they'll catch on eventually. However, you should catch on almost immediately. You should know that, I don't know, just thinking of some encounters that I had in my life, you should know when someone's running a scam, and that's kind of a scam if you want to pay someone money to determine how smart you are. So I would just hold off on that. Anyone that's listening to this, don't do that. There's no point. And also, someone was stating that out of IQ tests, one of the issues that you just become great at taking IQ tests, and that's it. Like I remember they stated that one guy was talking to this one woman, when they were talking about racing IQ, and he's talking about the people had low IQs. However, they were practicing IQ tests and they had great scores. And she was using this as an excuse to say, okay, refugees shouldn't come, low IQ refugees should not come to Europe because they could cause crime based on their IQs. Now, the issue was, he was stating, well, these people did take the IQ test. These weren't the refugees, of course. These were just other individuals, probably students, who were taking the IQ test. And they got good at IQ tests. And they got they got the near geniuses and genius scores. However, when they took other tests, they failed because they just got great at taking IQ tests. And then she nodded, didn't really acknowledge it. She didn't really shake hands with the deal, didn't really marry the deal, or what the guy was saying. She understood what he was saying, but it didn't really resonate with her. Because then she stated, yes, but still, don't you think that these people, and it's like, he's just stated that it really doesn't matter at that point, because people can have IQs, but if they just practice IQ tests, then it doesn't matter, because what other skills do they have? And at the end of the day, I think the test needs to evolve to something else. Maybe have somebody play Grand Theft Auto as an IQ test and see how well of a player they are. And if they do well, but if they're a vicious, aggressive player, but they are, methodical, then maybe they would be great at special forces, depending on how physically fit they are. However, I wouldn't leave that as the only determining factor. However, I do believe that games do give a better test or a more accurate test, because at the end of the day, you want someone who's smart and also emotionally stable. Because if you're, say, have an IQ of 160, but you're overly emotional and can't take criticism, then you're not going to do too well in this modern world. And also, I was just wondering, what's the IQ score of the person that made it? Because I don't know if this person had a lower IQ score or if they had a high one, because you never see those. But anyway, I think that's really all I can really say about IQ scores. And no, I'm not going to state mine, because at the end of the day, what fun is that? I'd rather someone else tell me what they think it is. Okay, people. This is Mr. Shaker, and I'm out.